Hi, it's Alex from Moon Mode. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the design philosophy and approach behind Time to Dawn, our truck simulator prototype that we're currently working on. And you can see on the screen here, looking pretty purple-tastic, because as we know, purple is the color of cool science fiction. Right. So prior to joining the video game industry, I lived in Japan. I was there for 16 years. And I had the opportunity to work as an industrial designer for some years under the guidance and mentorship of an amazing young designer who's still a good friend to this day. One thing that he taught me has really stuck with me, and it's an approach to design that I wanted to try for myself with video games. It's actually nothing new or innovative, especially if you know about tabletop board game design. But for me, it was a very, very new approach. To cut to the chase, basically, it's the idea of creating the setting and the world and then extracting from that gameplay, rather than the other way around, where you start with a cool mechanic or some fun thing to do. That's really good. And then, okay, well, we need a setting for this now. Now we'll kind of bolt onto that a story or a world setting. This is the other way around. So you create the entire world first, and then you look for the mechanics and the way that you play the game in that. And you pick out those answers that you need from all the details that you have in the world design. And that's the approach that we took here. Don't stop watching, because I want to explain a little bit more about why this was so fun for me in the case of Time to Dawn. When I was working for that industrial design company in Japan, my mentor entered me into a young designers competition in Kobe. And basically the format was that we would have about 4 to 5 weeks to come up with some kind of design presentation that we would then present to the class and to manufacturers. And I ended up actually winning that competition through using this approach that my mentor had recommended. So what he used to say was that you can't make good sushi without good fish. It kind of sounds a bit self-evident, but basically what it means is, and to kind of translate it into something a little bit more applicable to industrial design, 90% of your effort should be in the concept and 10% of your effort should be in the execution. And what he used to say was that if you have done enough work in the concept phase, then the execution phase kind of works itself. It kind of executes itself. And that's because all of the questions that you would normally have during the execution have already been answered in the concepting phase. This comes from perhaps nowadays with 3D printing, a bit more of a traditionalist approach to industrial design, and that is that you can't just iterate so easily. Unlike a video game where we can experiment with things and switch things out and see what feels better, with industrial design you're obviously working with molds and manufacturing processes and materials and cost and all that. And so every stage of iteration comes with a massive amount of cost and time. And so you have to do all of that pre-planning in order to make sure that the experiments that you're doing are actually worth the cost, essentially. As I said, video game design, we can move much more in a much more agile way and just sort of try different things. That's much harder with industrial design. So I wanted to apply this approach to this competition. So what I did was basically spend the entire time kind of denying myself the fun of thinking about my design from a visual point of view. So basically not visualizing at all what this thing I was designing would look like. Instead, I spent the whole time researching and concepting and thinking about the application for this product and how it would feel to use, and the social impact and the benefits and the drawbacks of different kinds of approaches, and a whole lot of documentation. Now, what's really cool is at the very, very end of that, I think there was like 3 days where I said, right, I have everything ready. Now I'm ready to finally let myself visualize what this thing actually looks like. And it was the kind of the smoothest, most intuitive design experience I've ever had. Like everything just clicked. Like, of course it looks like that. And of course it's made in this way. And of course it's that shape. And this is how you use it. All of those answers were already just all there in that concepting work that I'd done. So coming to Time to Dawn now, I wanted to do it the same way. As I mentioned, in board game design, I think that they call it the US approach and the Euro approach. So in European board games, they'll come up with the way to play first, and then they will kind of find a setting that kind of fits with that and sort of attach the setting onto the gameplay mechanics. Whereas a US approach will be they'll come up with the world and the narrative and who you are, what you're doing, and then they'll pull out the gameplay mechanics out of that. So in the case of Time to Dawn, as you saw in the previous video, I made that map, the world map, and the idea was that, well, this is a smaller planet. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, there's the stronger magnetic field, and it's denser bedrock and denser mantle to the planet. So that means, okay, so there's no tunneling. It'd be more unlikely for there to be things that go underground, so everything is overground. With the stronger magnetic field, that kind of creates a whole lot of implications for life. For example, okay, well, I mean, a lot of this is, it's pretty fanciful, fictional kind of stuff. There's nothing scientific about it, I guess. But okay, so there's no air travel. So that means that it's only land-based travel. And then because the magnetic fields are so strong, therefore, I guess they don't have wireless communication. So everything is communicated via connected cables. And what does that mean for living on this planet? And essentially, with this game as well, it was a repeat of exactly the same experience for me, where at the very end of thinking about all of this so much and so much documentation, right, now I'm ready to think about this in the terms of a video game. And then all the answers were there. Well, of course, you only drive at nighttime because this world has been ravaged by some kind of ecological collapse, and daytime is basically unsurvivable now. So of course you move around at night, and you have to get to your destination by dawn, hence Time to Dawn. And then of course your truck doesn't just receive, well, firstly you're driving a truck, and of course you're driving a truck because there's no air travel, so everything's land-based. There's no way to receive up-to-date real-time information about the weather patterns caused by these electrical storms, caused by the stronger magnetic field. So the only way to actually get updates for that information is by driving through these data gates, and then you get non-real-time updates. And so as I was allowing myself to think about the gameplay, again, so much just sort of clicked because all the answers were there in the world design itself. And it's quite interesting that this approach to designing a video game, I found, has a number of advantages and disadvantages. I think that the main advantage basically is that if this idea doesn't work, for example, if Time to Dawn itself as a truck simulator, if it's, okay, well, the world is nice, but it's not really that fun. If that's what we discover through this prototyping process, well, okay, I've got this entire world, I can just look somewhere else, and there's immediately so many other ideas for gameplay. It could be a role-playing game. It could be like some kind of first-person thing where you're walking around the settlements. It could be something, could even be like a visual novel where we're telling the story of this returner who's come back to the planet, and their gradual kind of gaining of favor amongst the linguistic groups who remain there. So there's so many other options there ready to be just plucked out. So if Time to Dawn itself, through the prototyping process, if we find that, it's a bit dry and we can't find answers in the world itself, well, okay, we can put it aside and then, try one of these other approaches just by looking at the world and taking cues from that. Of course, through this prototyping process, we found that actually it is fun, and there's a certain audience who's really going to appreciate this game and the more slower, measured kind of gameplay that it offers. But that option is there, and if we're lucky that Time to Dawn gets some attention and gains some success, then there's just endless opportunities for other ways to play in the world of Kyo. The main disadvantage, I guess, as I kind of alluded to just now, is that game design itself in this way becomes entirely speculative and theoretical. It means that you've got this great world and you pluck some gameplay out of it, but you have no idea whether that's going to be fun or not. It might be really, really boring. Yeah, it fits really consistently into the world, but it's boring. It just doesn't make for a good video game. And you don't know that when you're going through the process. Chris has taught me that video game design works best when it's very loose and very iterative. So you come up with an idea for some gameplay, you experiment. Nah, it's not really very fun. You maybe add this on. No. Add this. Oh, wow, that's actually kind of cool. Maybe if we do that, we can go here and we can go there and we can go here. And if you keep the design foundation very loose like that, then it allows you just to be more flexible and to really answer the call of what the game is telling you it needs to be. This approach where you've got the world and you pull the game out of it is a bit more rigid, and it's harder to be so iterative like that when the world is set. You can find entirely different game ideas, but for the one that you're making and the prototype you're making, it's much, much harder. So in the case of Time to Dawn, this prototype that we're making now is basically this first prototype of this gameplay which has been extracted from the world. And I'm happy to say that it's coming together really, really nicely. Like a lot of the things that I was worried about perhaps not being that fun, basically just driving in a straight line for 5 minutes, when you combine it together with everything else that's in the world and together with the mood and some of the other things, the other influences that we've taken from the games that have informed the design of Time to Dawn, it's come together really, really nicely. And I think that a lot of people are going to enjoy this more slower, measured, meditative, contemplative approach to gameplay. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this series of videos about Time to Dawn. And as I always say, yes, if you enjoy this video and if you enjoy the concept of this game, then please feel free to do the stuff, the social media stuff that I suck at. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.